Hey Tony, it's Tuesday, and first I have to answer your question of the week. Sure, I guess. I mean, I'll take a look at it. Sounds interesting, but if you want to send it to me, I'll take a look. And I would definitely suggest. I like Google Docs personally because it's free, and I think it's pretty good. It's just like Word, which I've used since I was a kid, and so I think Google Docs is a pretty good option. So what I want to talk about this week is actually not about politics because, quite frankly, I don't have the mental bandwidth to do that today. It's been a rough couple weeks. Just a lot going on, a lot getting prepped up for next week with all the family coming in and the trial date. So like my mental bandwidth is not high enough to be able to really talk politics today. So instead, what I want to talk about is some fun ways to do like creative things about like worlds or to write things out or to kind of like plot out games and things like that. Now, I'll be the first to admit, there are two types of dungeon masters or game masters, depending on your system. There are planners and there are pantsers. Planners is someone who plans from A to B to C to D to E to F to G, whereas a pantser is more like, okay, we're going to go with A, but now I want to go to Z because you did something that is different. And I've always been a little more on the pantser side just because like I always have like a general outline of what I'm planning on doing, but it's not me who sets up the game. It's not me who tells the story. I always look at it as my players who tell the story, and so I kind of go a little more of that. Like I have big plot points that I like to hit, but it's just kind of the way I've done things. Like I tried being a planner before, and I just don't think it really gelled well with my style. And like I'm sure you've noticed it in Witcher, it's like I have this general idea of what's going to happen, and then something changes and it kind of goes completely different. And I feel like that gives me enough flexibility to like be able to tell a story that maybe I wouldn't be able to otherwise. I think a good example of that was in the Masks game that I ran. Was it 2020? I think 2020, 2021, somewhere in there, in which like I had an idea for how I wanted the story to go, but then instead, like listening to what players had, listening to your idea of like, oh, is the bad guy my character's dad? I thought that just made for a better story. And I've kind of done that a lot through times that I've run games. Is okay, what makes for the best story? I noticed it in Witcher as well. Like I had originally a plan where it's like, okay, you know what, we're gonna just kind of go with the book, but then Jeff suggested, oh, well, what if Thelonious has this thing in his backstory? And I'm like, oh, okay, that's a good thing to do. And then it kind of evolved from there. And I just think like I like being more on the pantser side, just because I think your story can be a little more compelling, and I think it's a good way to make sure your players are never bored. Now, it certainly goes to a different point as well. You don't want to go too far on that side where your players have no idea what's going to happen that session. Like we had a game that we were running that was called Monster Hearts. It's another Powered by the Apocalypse. It's basically like Monster High School. We kind of did it a little bit differently. We went like Monster Adults, but we were telling this story of this town hidden in the mountains called Silver Hills of Colorado. It was like an old resort town that kind of had seen better days. And we were telling a story that we all really liked, but then our game master they decided instead to do something completely different, completely awry, in which we were building this story and then it kind of ended and it went out of control, and all of us kind of look at that game where that we were a little bit upset with how that ended up, because we were really enjoying the story we were telling, and the story that we got in the end just kind of put a bad taste in all of our mouths. We've also noticed that a lot with some of our Masks games that myself or Taylor isn't running, because we went too far on the pantser side, and at that point it made it so the story we were telling went completely awry and didn't really turn out the way we wanted it to. Like I had a character, Wildcard, who you met in the Mask game that I ran years ago, but his story had, I think, kind of come to a logical conclusion, but we needed one more person from like the origin, like that from the team, to be able to carry on so everyone else could continue. and I just had my character do it because I had been the last one to enter the game as Wildguard. And it was just kind of like, it went really awry with the story that I wasn't expecting, I didn't really plan on, or that none of us really wanted. And I think that crosses the line where you can't pants too much, because then there's no cohesion. So that's kind of my brief thoughts on planning a game, whether you're a planner or a pantser. So I think I kind of lean more on the pantser side, but I definitely always have like a big general outline for what I do each session. So my question for you, Tony, is what do you do in your games? Are you a pantser or are you a planner? Tony, I'll talk to you later, Dave. I'll see you on Friday. Later, bro.